Hello, everybody. Today is April 6th, and today we're doing government and security.
That's exciting.
What else is new with you guys? You had a good week?
2021 is 25% gone, and it's really triggering my existential crisis.
You know what sucks? Cold lawn care.
Yeah.
Cold lawn care is not fun.
I had to turn the boiler back on today.
Oh, it's supposed to be warm again tomorrow. It'll be back up in the 60s. My radishes, they'll be thriving.
I was, because I came here to drop that stuff off yesterday, and there's all those nice, I don't know what kind of trees those are, but they're the white petals on the flowers. And it was just swirling around, and I was like, oh man, this is so magical. Look at all these flower petals just swirling around. And I was like, wait a minute, they're melting. It was snowing yesterday.
Yeah.
I didn't see
Not
the
great
snow.
for the old garden.
Yeah, so weird weather, but that's nothing new for this year, is it?
We're talking about the weather. We've got to talk about like other things.
Well, it's not going to get any hipper, because when you talk about old people, there's a lot of them in this organization, and once in a while they do stuff. This is one of those times. They're like the cicada. They crawl out from underground and they make decisions.
Terrible decisions. The New York Times reports that the Supreme Court has let the F.C.C. relax its limits on media ownership. Well, they already did it. This is, Ajit Pai's F.C.C. It was just this Supreme Court challenge took a little while to get there, like you were saying, the cicada thing. The Supreme Court said, yeah, this is totally fine. It's totally okay for just a couple of people to own literally all of the media. No, unrelated to that, did you see that YouTube TV added like CNBC and a lot of like the contemporary TV channels, and the dislike ratio is incredible.
Oh, you know what? I forgot to add that story. You know what they're doing in response to that?
Getting rid of the dislike counter.
But it's not because of that. It's because of the Biden speech. Did you see the Biden speech? The ratio was crazy. And the next day, they made that announcement.
It's not good for creators' mental health. You know what? There's a lot of things that are not good for creators' mental health, like changing the algorithm arbitrarily and not communicating. And when the algorithm makes a mistake, not ever fixing the mistake. Those
Just
things are
general dystopia we live in. It's not good for anybody's.
Floatplane.com/level1 or patreon.com/level1.
Level 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so transparent.
It really
They're
is.
doing there. But what are you going to do? I mean, we're in an age where it's all kind of out in the open. You can't really be surprised by it anymore.
It does. But hang on a second here, because like, okay, blah, 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 pro-capitalism. Doesn't it suggest that if the dislike ratio is so high that there is a market for something that is not so blatantly terrible?
You mean like our government replaced that with something that's not terrible?
No, just the media aspect of it.
It's the same thing at this point.
Doesn't that mean that YouTube is becoming less egalitarian and more just another apparatus of the machine?
No, it's not
I think
becoming.
That's been happening for a long time. Yeah.
It is.
I just wanted to throw that out there. Just
It's obvious what it is. It's obvious what they are catering to.
store.level1text.
It's not calm.
That is not the only decision the Supreme Court made that has to do with the tech world. This one is a little bit weirder because I guess you did technically opt in.
No. This is one of this guy's. This guy had a shadow profile.
Oh, he wasn't even a part of Facebook?
No.
I didn't get that from it.
Yeah. Supreme Court says Facebook text alerts aren't illegal robocalls. So somehow this guy was on Facebook, but not really. He said his lawyer said that he didn't really have a Facebook account, so maybe he
What
had
does
one and then
didn't
canceled
really
it.
mean?
Yeah. So
Where'd they get the phone number? That's the question.
Well, Facebook did collect those. I mean, that was a thing that they did.
But I mean, if he typed it
But you
in,
had to have a profile, yeah. I've never heard of them getting it without you making a profile.
I'm sure they get it, but they probably don't use it.
He was getting an ungodly number of text messages because the bots were trying to break into his account. And so he was getting text message alerts that's like, hey, somebody's trying to log into your Facebook account. And he couldn't stop it. So this. Which is not exactly the same.
I had that situation one time with Blizzard. Because somebody tried to use my email address to create a WoW account or something like that. And then when I finally got in touch with them, I did a chat and then a call. They were like angry at me. I was like, just delete everything about this email address from your service. I'm never going to use your service. And they're like, well, no, you might be using that maliciously. Which I guess I could have. But yeah, the Facebook thing, basically they're saying that, and the ruling is even worse than just like, no, it's okay because they already had the number. The rule is it has to be a random or iterating phone number to be a quote unquote robocall. If they're going from a list, it doesn't count.
Yeah, that seems like that opens up the door for these terrible auto warranty scams.
Don't you think that all those Indian call centers are working off some kind of advertising list?
You would think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they're not, they're
Randomly.
stupid. I mean, that's going to improve your results amazingly if you start with that.
This is another story that makes it, what is it you say? You want to hate nap? We were just warming up.
Oh, yeah.
Get ready for it.
You probably have to go all night with this one. You just have to. This is your normal sleep cycle. You can't nap long enough to get this hate out of you. The full 8 hours. But on the other hand, one of the best stock images I've ever seen.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
fantastic. I was about to say that.
Absolutely incredible. And Krista, you should start collecting snail shells, and we should make these and sell them.
On the store. Do you think
Yeah.
anyone would buy them? Tell us in the
Yes,
comments
they
below.
absolutely would.
'Cause-
I found some
Handmade.
snails out in the garden the other day, and I was like, you little bastards.
Well, harvest them.
Yeah.
it's
I mean,
time.
they're tiny. They're really tiny. But,
But this, you know what? We always get a lot of engagement, and yeah, I mean, it doesn't really hurt my feelings, but I understand they are, trying to poke us, and we do deserve it. Whenever we talk about something about internet speeds in the U.S., all the international people love to post what they're getting for what price. We get it. We get it.
we know.
AT&T lobbies against nationwide fiber, and it says 10 megabit uploads are good enough. All right, I'm fine with this if AT&T retroactively refunds the tax breaks that they've taken since 1992 in order to wire a bunch of households with fiber. They literally said in 1993 that they were going to, AT&T, that they were going to wire 5.5 million, I think it was, homes with fiber by the year 2000. What year is it again?
That's the rub, isn't it? It's like, fine if you don't want to do this, but like, give the money back.
Yes.
Because you're clearly not holding your end of the bargain up.
As of 2006, the average amount of money that the telecoms had benefited was over $5,000 per subscriber household. That number is probably even more by now. And those tax breaks were literally to run fiber. They say that 10 megabit and copper is plenty good enough, which, as we know from our audience from all the rest of the world, it is transformational to your economy if your internet isn't at garbage tier speeds.
It's true.
What would you name him? Patchy?
Talking about the
AT&T.
snail?
Something to do with cat? Yeah, I'm naming the snail.
Oh.
You name the snail, chat. And with that in mind, this sounds really good. Now, to be fair, a lot of presidents make a lot of promises that sound really good, but hey, if he can deliver this, I will
That'd be
certainly give him credit for it.
Biden infrastructure plan promises broadband to all within 8 years. Hopefully this will be like the moon landing, where it was basically a done deal by the time the president that promised it left office. But I have my doubts. On the one hand, some of this seems like a copy-paste from the Clinton administration when they were like, woo, everybody's going to get this. And that's the thing that we're always complaining about. The thing I was just complaining about, yeah.
Well, this is going to go toward municipal government-run broadband, and normally when you say government-run, you vomit with fear of how bad it's going to be, but it's already so bad. They might actually do better.
The problem with this approach, though, is that there's not any legal infrastructure in place that prevents the incumbent telecoms from suing the state and local governments to prevent them from doing this. Because technically under U.S. law, that's the government competing with a business, which is like one of those 17 deadly sins for government.
Well, it's state level, so they can fight it at the state level, but with this, they couldn't fight it at the federal level.
That didn't really work at the federal level either for like the whole drug law thing.
Yeah, but presumably this would somehow change that. So
I think they should have preemptively passed laws to deal with it and then shoved it down states' throats if they were going to take that approach. So 8 years is going to stretch into 20 years.
I don't think we should set the precedent of destroying states' rights over this. As important as this is to me,
I'm operating under the assumption that they've already been destroyed by the war on drugs, and but yeah, you're probably right.
this one is a little bit older, but we already talked about them having this, but this just reiterated how difficult it was to get answers out of these people. And basically they went through and just showcased that nobody answered a question, no matter how angry everybody else got and said yes or no. No one cared.
Congress questioned big tech CEOs for 5 hours without getting any good answers. We did report on this last week, but this article on Engadget really stands out as summarizing what was actually said. I mean, it was a whole bunch of nothing, but this is a good summary.
And just points out, I mean, they even went so far as to be like, do you understand yes or no? And they didn't give me a yes or no answer. So it's the problem is you benefit from just, trying to fool everybody and not giving an answer. That's way better than giving the true answer.
And like, this is one of those fights that you read about and it's like, wow, I really dislike both sides of this issue. Like he was tweeting, Dorsey was tweeting, I guess, during this, and he was like, why isn't anyone asking me about my other project? And it's like, dude, come on.
But they weren't even there for that.
Maybe he thought it was a PR joke.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares about Jack Dorsey? The problem with Jack Dorsey, the problem with all of them, and this gentleman here, is that the cult worships them. And that creates in their mind the idea that they should be worshipped. It's all of your fault. All of you Elon Musk idiots in the comments, this is what you get. This is what you get when you raise people up like that.
Weird nerds, valid criticism.
Yeah.
I love that meme.
But this one, you got to wonder, there's sometimes when you are instructed to do something and it's stupid and it might even be bad for the project or the company or just the world, but people more powerful than you insist that you do it. I have a feeling that the legal team felt that when they were trying to do this case.
Apple loses bid to stop Swatch using Jobs' one more thing queue. What is Swatch? That's Swiss Watch. I didn't know that.
Huh. Swiss
Watch is saying just one more thing in their ads because, it's a Swiss timepiece. That's first of the iWatch. And they've got the right to use just one more thing in the UK.
Why would anybody have the right to use just one more thing? It's just a phrase. It's a phrase that people have been using for a long time. They point out if anybody should own it, it should be whoever wrote Columbo. Because that was always Columbo's thing. Is like, there's just one thing bothering me. You turn around and then boom, you were done. You didn't want to hear Columbo say that. But Jobs always used it as like, oh, we're not going to announce the new thing. We're going to do the whole program. And then right before it's all over, I'm going to drop it on you. So they felt that was iconic enough.
That might be brainwashing.
I hate Apple. And in China, they also have a contentious relationship with some of their corporations. Although it's not the ISPs. They've got those all wrapped up. It's these pesky Western companies that love to do business over there, but don't always get in line the way they're told to.
China is erasing H&M from the internet amid Xinjiang backlash. Xinjiang, sorry.
So H&M, when they say erase from the internet, you might be thinking, oh, did they block their domains? No. If you are an H&M product, you are no longer on Alibaba or any of those other big things. The search results will not return for you. They are literally erasing them because they're angry at something they did.
1984 style, which is amazing. We have the technology. And guess what? Western companies built that technology for China mostly.
Most of the clothes from H&M are probably made in China as well, so.
It's a global operation.
Haven't they moved most of that to Vietnam at this point? I think most clothing's made there, right?
Well, China keeps claiming Vietnamese islands, so.
Well, I think China, they've got enough of a middle class now that a lot of people don't want to work in those factories. So yeah, a lot of it's cheaper to get it done in like Bangladesh or Vietnam.
Excellent segue, Krista, because I think China is working hard to replace those people who aren't willing to work in factories anymore.
Foreshadowing.
And they're doing it in one of the worst ways possible.
Facebook is saying that Chinese hackers use the platform to hack Uyghurs abroad. Facebook's head of cyber espionage said it found and removed fewer than 500 accounts that sent malicious links to Uyghurs as part of an extremely targeted operation. And this is on NBC News. NBC News is picking up on this.
So what they do, and this is smart, I guess. It's really, really evil, but it's smart. They'll establish an account for some period of time, so it'll stand up to a background check. And this account will pretend to be a reporter who is very sympathetic to the Uyghur plight. And once they feel like it's got enough traction, then that identity will contact a Uyghur who's made it out of China and be like, we need to talk, but we need to be super careful. Install this.
Oh.
And then it's all over.
Not related at all, but this guy's face masks has Comic Sans. Free my people with the tone of happy birthday to my 3-year-old.
If it gets it noticed, I guess.
Yeah.
They probably didn't think too much about
The font.
as they
The
were
font was free, I imagine, so.
as they were weeping openly as they made the mask, thinking of their disappeared and or dead family and or enslaved. We talked about the chip fabs that may be coming to America. Not anytime soon because it takes a really long time to build those. But hey, be great if we got them right. But we are not the only country who wants those delicious chip fabs. And some are willing to pay big.
Reuters reports that $1 billion for every chip maker who makes in India, sources say. India is offering $1 billion in cash to each semiconductor company that sets up manufacturing units in the country and seeks to build on smartphone assembly industry and strengthen its electronics supply chain. So we know that the fabs here in Arizona, Intel's going to spend $20 billion. TSMC is going to spend $100 billion, foreshadowing for another story. $1 billion is kind of a drop in the bucket, but maybe that's enough incentive to bring some fabs there.
Yeah, but that cheap labor. Plus, they're going to give you preferred pricing inside of India. Anybody buying locally will be and might be forced to use your stuff. And there was something else they were going to give you in terms of interest-free loans. Well,
they've learned from the Foxconn Apple debacle where they just didn't pay anybody for months. So I think there are going to be some conditions before you get that payout.
Well, we'll see. Why doesn't everybody just get a fab? Let's get too many chips. Make them cheap. Myanmar, they're still having their issues. Doesn't seem like, that's one of those things where when it first happened, I kind of thought, is anybody going to do anything about this? And it was like, oh, no, they don't have oil.
Yeah, no one's interested
in doing anything. So it seems like they're the new government, and they're also not taking their boot off the neck of these people anytime soon.
Myanmar orders wireless internet shutdown until further notice, according to telecoms. So that's pretty much all there is in this article. That's all we know, because that seems like it's been pretty effective at cutting off information coming out of the zone.
This article's really like just a paragraph long. Like it's barely an article.
And yet, that would be massive news if you lived there.
Yeah.
You'd be super bummed about that.
You wouldn't be able to do your job in our case if you don't have internet.
Just think when they get internet back, the quarantine will be over.
Well, it's just wireless at this point, but that's still a huge part of your day.
Yeah.
So, unfortunate. Now, when I saw this headline, I thought that it was a story that we had already done, but I looked at the date and I was like, wait a minute. No, this is not that same story. It happened again.
The feds say that man broke into public water system and shut down the safety process. Indictment underscores the potential for remote intrusions that have fatal consequences. So this has been an investigation that's been going on for a while, but this is the first the first wind of it that we've gotten. So
this guy used to work there, and everybody used the same TeamViewer password and account. On they said it was a version of Windows that was no longer secure. I wonder which version do you think that
XP.
Was it XP or 7?
Yeah.
Almost certainly XP.
And they all used the same account to connect to it. When he left, the password was not changed, so he was able to do whatever he wanted. And much like the guy from before, he went in there and messed around with the filtration levels and like the added chemicals that probably would have been damaging to human health if it hadn't gotten caught.
That's crazy.
I don't know what you hope to gain from that. Is that just watching
Maybe
the world
he's like,
burn?
Whoever works here after me will not have to deal with the same crap I do because they'll be so paranoid about someone doing what I just did that they'll actually fund this department.
I bet they'll fix that system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that part of Biden's thing is money for water districts and stuff that don't have any money to fix this kind of thing.
Yeah, infrastructure is the big It's the lion's share of all that stuff.
The bad thing is going to be, though, that there's going to be a bunch of snake oil salesmen that know how to play the game for the bureaucracy and the paperwork, but don't actually really fix the problem as effectively as they could with the money.
Well, I think that's true of everything to do with the highway department and infrastructure. I mean, you waste so much money getting that done.
Think how many times they've fixed the street behind the office. How much money they've put into that, and it's still floods.
Our interstates are really bad shape right now. Yeah. They are just chewed up from that winter.
We had that ice storm and everything else.
So yeah, let's get those fixed. Whatever. It's better than the pork spending, right? Overspend on something we need, fine. Just stop giving it to other countries, maybe.
Yeah. In theory, too, that would give people jobs, which would also be good.
Yeah, that's the big thing. You got to put everybody back to work, and
maybe if you take your local water company takes the money to secure their stuff, they have to go with a company that's like in state or, is not one of those companies that just siphons up government contracts and doesn't actually do much with them.
We'll see. We've moved on to security, and the Google Play Store, certainly not a paragon of security. When you think about the most secure things on the internet, that's not one of them.
It's literally unusable. Like, you can't, the Google Play Store might as well not exist. It is so dangerous to install apps from it.
And they're trying to improve that image. This is a baby step, I would say, but hey, it's a step, right?
Google Play limiting Android 11 Plus apps from seeing what's installed on devices this May. No, never mind that Java has all these amazing built-in wonderful sandbox protections. We're not going to use that. We're going to do our own thing.
So if you install an app right now, that app can call a function that will tell you what other apps are on the phone. There could be real uses for that. There could be reasons you would need that.
It can scan the file system.
Yeah, there's a lot of just profile building probably going on from this. And there's a lot of things that you can infer based on the apps that I have installed. So this is probably a good move. They're not happy about it. The other app makers, I mean. But if you have a little bit of feel good in your heart for the evil empire that is Google after that headline, let me just take that back from you.
Just stamp it out.
Google collects 20 times more telemetry from Android devices than the same apps on iOS. What does that tell you?
Well, it could be that they take more. It could be that they're less efficient about it. It could be that they just, their files that they use for telemetry are just bigger. I guess that would go to the efficiency.
One of the things in the article that I thought was disturbing was every 4.5 minutes, your Android phone is constantly phoning home. But it is worth noting that they did throw Apple under the bus here a little bit as well, because even on an Apple device, as soon as you insert the SIM card, it not only will tell Apple what the IMEI number, the serial number is of the thing that was inserted. It'll tell Apple all of the MAC addresses of all of the wireless devices around the phone. So it's like you plug in your phone, and it's like the phone can see all the wireless traffic, whether it's encrypted or not. It knows it's there, and it's like, oh, I see all this stuff. It's like, do you really need to report that even before the phone has been registered to a human being? That seems a little obsessive.
The first 4 minutes in Android will cost you 1 megabyte. So you boot your phone, even for the first time, 1 megabyte of data is being transacted to spy on you. Pretty impressive. And based on...
Not the adjective I would have chosen, but...
And, think about how much text that is.
Yeah.
That is a lot.
The collected works of Shakespeare are 1.2 megabytes.
So that's something. Ubiquiti had a little bit of a problem. That is, they said it was a little bit of a problem. Other people are saying perhaps more of a problem.
Whistleblower, Ubiquiti breach has catastrophic. There's an article here from Krebs on Security. It's really not super clear exactly the extent of the problem. Ubiquiti says it was a third-party contracting system, but out of an abundance of caution, they're having everybody reset their password. It says that they were, they were threatened with extortion and all this other stuff. So it's really anybody's guess as to what exactly made its way out. They apparently didn't have the appropriate logging set up in their infrastructure. So it's possible the attackers could have downloaded source code, at least according to the stuff in this article and some other stuff that I read on the internet. So if they've got the source code to all the stuff that runs this, it seems like they would be in a good spot to find vulnerabilities or mistakes.
And the logging thing is one of the things they kind of nailed into the wall here, because their response was something like, we have found no indication of this. But the truth is, they weren't logging what would be the indication of that. So the absence of it means nothing. They weren't watching.
If you've been following this channel for a while, I've sort of given Ubiquiti a hard time because of their lack of quality control in their other products. It's nice to know that it extends to the entire company. Seems like.
And Krebs is that's a name that has become somewhat synonymous with security. Yeah, he certainly does a lot of work for it. But when you are at the top of that pile, you become a big name and perhaps a target yourself.
No, I did not hack your MS Exchange server. New data suggests that someone has compromised more than 21,000 Microsoft Exchange email servers worldwide and infected them with malware that makes both Krebs on security and yours truly by name. No, it wasn't him. So
well, but what if it was? Wouldn't that be brilliant?
The antivirus makers are making the viruses. Ah! That's not even what Brian Krebs does. He just, he's basically a consultant, I think.
So at this point, if you're still
analyst,
if you're not taking that Exchange server stuff seriously, you've got no hope.
No,
might as well just turn it off, because
it's already too late.
And this is the most disturbing trend, perhaps, in the programming world, especially web development, because we have all of these libraries, and it's very difficult to get anything started without loading a billion of these things. It's really annoying. And who can you trust? More and more, it seems like no one.
Critical flaw found in widely used Netmask open source module. This is like a Node.js thing. It helps compute netmasks if you need that in your project. And it was a mistake, I guess, in the regular expression to figure this out, which leads to a lot of problems.
It was this was the one with the IP address, right?
Yeah.
So 0127 should actually not result in dropping the 0. That's the error. It does, which can break it. So, bad move. Krista, swap the next two stories, please.
Oh, no.
Because you might think to yourself, okay, I get it. Libraries can be poison, dangerous. You know what? I'm just going to do it all from scratch. I'm just going to choose a language and write everything myself, and then I'll be sure, right? Right?
PHP's Git server hacked to add backdoors to PHP source code. I'm pretty sure that I saw one of the developers after this tweeting, hey, is there a way to make GitHub only accept PGP signed commits? And it turns out, yes, that's a checkbox. That's all that is. There's a checkbox there that's like signed commits, accept those. But this has not actually been deployed in any PHP version. This wasn't there for months and then found. Somebody got access to somebody else's credentials, added the backdoor, and it was noticed immediately. So it didn't make it into any actual distributed version of PHP. But it does say that somebody that shouldn't have had access to PHP's Git repository.
And that was their own Git server. They have now moved to GitHub from their own because of that. It's a coup for Microsoft, isn't it? And this points out that, as I have pointed out in the past, the systems in your home are never secure if there are children in the home.
Child tweets gibberish from U.S. nuclear agency account. No, it wasn't code to installed spies overseas. There you go.
I saw this story and was like,
That looks like an excellent password.
I was just going to say, is anybody using that as a password now? Because that would be funny.
What's the nuclear launch code? Oh, there you go.
So yeah, if you're running a high-profile government Twitter account, when you go stand up to pee or get something to drink, lock the screen.
That's insane. I mean, I guess he's working from home, but like, why would you not lock your? Who doesn't do that? Just
Well, if
out
you're
of,
a
like-
social media manager, you're probably working kind of around the clock, don't you think?
I've actually had a butt tweet or two.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought you
How does
didn't
that
use the
even
mobile.
happen?
On the mobile web, like it somehow my phone woke up because usually my phone goes to sleep and requires a fingerprint or a code after about 30 seconds, and somehow like I put my phone to sleep and I put it in my pocket, and I must have gotten a notice or something at exactly the right time, and then I butt tweeted somehow.
Impressive.
Yeah, it was like, how does
If you
this
ever
even
see a
happen?
message like that from Wendell, you'll know.
Maybe you can solve that problem by getting yourself a nice Apple Watch.
The Apple Watch is like, your phone is awake.
But that's not all it can do. And I put this in the security section because just imagine what the healthcare industry would do with this information in the insurance industry. It always comes back to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Apple Watch can accurately assess frailty, finds Stanford study. So basically, it's got an accelerometer. It's always on. It's measuring your motions. Instinctively, whether you know it or not, you're going to move a little bit slower, a little bit more cautiously. Maybe after you get that first round of the vaccine, it's like, oh, my head's swimming a little bit. What's going on? Your Apple Watch knows, and that's going in your permanent file.
Well, it needs 6 minutes of moderate activity to be able to set this. But once it gets that, based on all the things that it can measure, it can supposedly give you a pretty good idea of your level of what they call frailty, which I guess is kind of like, okay, if the caldera went off today, how likely are you to make it? That's the way I look at that.
I like our distance from Yellowstone for that, but
Oh, yeah, that wouldn't get us. It'd be the ash.
Yeah.
That would be it'd be a lot easier to go in the lava, I would think. Is it lava or magma? It's lava once it hits the top, right?
Yeah.
Never can remember that. The Ministry of Health. It's always so dystopian to hear those names. I know they've been around for a long time, but
this is New Zealand. It doesn't count.
they had a little problem with their system. I think we talked about that last week, and now they've vowed that they're going to clean it up.
Yeah, after getting all that negative publicity last week, the headline this week is the Ministry of Health has launched a sweeping new review of how they're handling the vaccine booking systems. Yeah, New Zealand, it's like, okay, well, we did a good job handling the lockdown, but we didn't really do a good job so far of everything else.
Is there any shining example of who did a good job with the vaccines yet? I've only seen failures.
Well, not failures, but it's just a cluster. It's like
it's a big administrative task to try and distribute all that.
you ever see those old Black Friday sale videos where like Walmart opens up at like 4:00 in the morning and then the doors just explode off their hinges?
Yeah.
Of course, I love those.
It's like that, but with the vaccine.
But it's not like that because a lot of people aren't interested at all. Well, I guess that's true of Black Friday as well, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
The sane people are like, yeah, you guys go get it. And then keep me updated. See what happens with you.
Wendell, have you gotten your second dose yet?
No, my mom got hers though. She's been fine.
Your time's not up yet, right? You got
It
a
is-
week left.
No, it is, but they give you an extra week or two for whatever reason. So today would have been the second week.
How was her second round?
She slept all day the second day, but is basically okay.
Cool.
I don't want to lose a day.
She's like, I have to have Tylenol, and then she's just like, okay, I took a nap. It's fine.
I hate nap.
If you are somebody who is saying to yourself, man, I just don't trust these vaccines, and maybe you're one of those people who makes your own pet food, makes your own baby food, and you happen to have a really, really state-of-the-art lab in your house that no one actually has, then maybe you could just use this instead.
Stanford
Easy.
scientists reverse engineer the vaccine and post the code on GitHub. This may actually end up being used in countries, because I was reading that some countries are going to have to wait until 2022, which seems
Insane.
not great for the rest of the world.
Do they have the manpower and the equipment to do this?
Sometimes. I mean, think about like some of the South African nations.
So they were very clear. They're like, look, we didn't waste any vaccine to do this. There was some drops left and ones that we had already administered. We carefully collected all those till we had enough to run it through and figure out what it was. We're not trying to undercut anybody, but this is important. The world should know about this. So far, GitHub hasn't taken it down. I imagine the Moderna lawyers are making some calls.
Foaming at the mouth.
But that is real bad PR.
Yeah.
You got to keep that in mind. People are not going to like to hear that you are trying to. What you're obviously trying to do is make billions of dollars off of this. But you have to pretend you're not. Be careful. Because if something terrible were to happen, that's when the backlash comes. You have to worry. You can let a terrible problem fester for years and years and years unless Vice decides to do an article about it. Then you're in trouble. Then you have to take the minimal steps that you could have done all along to actually fix the problem.
T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T stop SMS hijacks after a motherboard investigation. So if you didn't see that story, it turns out that for $16 you could have gone on a website and said, I have the right to receive text messages from this phone number. And they would happily turn that on. And then Motherboard was like, this seems wrong. And then AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile said, oh, yeah, that was totally unintentional. I guess we'll turn that off.
We're committed to your privacy. We're so sorry.
And you think about, I've tried to get away from SMS for my two factors, but I do still have a couple. You are so screwed if they get that.
Yeah.
Because, okay, they've got your account, and now they've got your email. Who do you call? There's nobody you're going to get on the phone with.
Mm-mm.
Google literally doesn't care. The algorithm is literally running our lives more and more every day. And whatever the algorithm says goes, because you just can't. It's like getting mad at a river and going out and just, yelling at the river as it flows around you as you stand naked in the freezing water.
It's exactly like that. And finally, we keep finding out more and more about the SolarWinds hack. Gosh, it was so out of fashion there for a while. I mean, the Exchange hack was so much hotter. But we still get these details leaking out about how bad SolarWinds was, and we never even knew the depth of it.
SolarWinds hack got the emails of top DHS officials. No, that's just the email addresses, right? That's not really a big deal. No, sweet summer child, no. They got so much.
Now, they said that they have not yet estimated how bad these leaks were. Like, did these people have a lot of really sensitive stuff in their emails? But I imagine the answer is yes.
Probably.
Yeah.
So we probably won't hear more about that, though.
Between that and Exchange, it's just, that's the 1-2 punch of what's going to be number 3 for the trifecta.
Well, they almost got PHP. That would have been a big one.
I think the commit was just so obvious, though, that it was the only thing in the commit.
What if that commit was just to cover up the real hack?
Well, there's a smoke screen. There's like a double equal in there when it should be a triple equal or something crazy like that. Yeah.
Well, that's all we got for today. Tomorrow, we might just do all business. I think we might sneak in another small section in there. Don't actually know yet.
There wasn't really a lot of government news this week.
Kind of a weird week for news. I think people were. It gets like that, it swells up and then it ebbs. I think people were a little oversaturated after the canal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need a little bit of a break.
Well, I mean, that's all old news. I mean, that ship has sailed.
Nah. Just been waiting all episode to make that joke.
All right, Krista, take us out.
All right. Bye. It's April 7th. Hello, we're doing robot business. Mostly business, but a little bit of robot.
Robot business.
Robot business. The worst kind of business.
Is it?
No,
I would
actually,
say
it's probably not.
Government would be worse in terms of business. Well, the big business story that maybe a glimmer of hope. I think at this point we can all agree that higher prices are the only solution here. That's how the market solves things. We're going to have to let that happen. And TSMC is saying, yep, that's how it's going to be. And if you don't like it, well, who else are you going to talk to?
TSMC has canceled chip price cuts and promises a $100 billion investment surge. Now, keep in mind, they're also looking at building a 5-nanometer production plant, whatever, here in the U.S. But this is a really interesting way to put it too. They reached out to all the people that buy stuff from them and said, normally with the march of technology, prices get cheaper. I mean, imagine that. Imagine Amazon AWS getting slightly cheaper every year because computing costs less every year, right? Wow. I mean, what a concept. But TSMC saying, well, we can't do it this year because obviously.
Yeah.
Thinking
And
of profit.
when it comes to new kinds of chips, perhaps that is also part of the thing that will save us, because obviously we are really dependent on one kind right now, and we're starting to see the potential, I guess more than the potential with the Mac, of the ARM platform. And so ARM is saying that, hey, we're not stopping.
ARM unveils new technology that is yet another way that it's going to compete with x86 on the desktop, or so Bloomberg would have us believe.
And particularly that Intel market share. Yeah. They want that Intel market share.
ARM is coming for x86 at the server, at mobile, desktop. The most surprising thing to me out of all this is not how good ARM is. It is shocking how good ARM is, compared to x86. It is how bad the Qualcomm Snapdragon stuff has been. And not bad is not the right word. It's just not remotely as good as expected for ambiguous reasons. I mean, Microsoft beat Apple to the ARM punch, and the M1 is breathtakingly better than the ARM in the Surface laptop that's based on Qualcomm Snapdragon. What went wrong?
So that's not just the x86 there. Well, I mean, it's still x86, but not just desktop. They're saying that, the world is going into Internet of Things, all this other stuff, the stuff that Intel does, but not as part of their main desktop server type stuff. And they're saying, we're going after that as well. We're taking them down.
We can be literally everywhere. We can be like the Linux, except of hardware.
Amazon, it has been revealed, had some big plans that the pandemic seems to have set aside. Do you think they'll go back to these?
Yes.
Probably almost surely.
Yeah.
Amazon explored opening home goods and electronics discount stores. So basically all their returned merchandise and all the stuff that's just sitting around the warehouse that they're having trouble moving, they're going to ship it to a warehouse that the public can peruse and get their filthy, grubby mitts all over it. And from there, then, well, if nobody still wants to buy it, it makes sense for it to be in a landfill.
It's going to be tough on those people who buy the return pallets.
Yeah.
It's going to destroy their business model.
Yeah, I did that once, and I didn't really get anything very good. Turned me off of it.
And maybe one of the reasons that Amazon has put a pause on some of these plans, or at least isn't focusing all of its effort on them, is because it's now focusing all of its effort on something else, something far more important to them. And if you ask yourself, well, how important to them is this really? You only have to look at the series of steps they've attempted to take. These minute, tiny little, butterfly effect changes that they're willing to fight to the death on, because they know any advantage is something they have to have.
Amazon loses effort to install camera to watch counting ballots in pivotal union vote. We are, of course, talking about Alabama. I think it's in Alabama.
Yep.
So suddenly drew a blank. Amazon warehouse workers are unionizing in the state of Alabama. And, that's their right to do that, but it sure is making Amazon nervous AF. So they're saying, hey, we just want to make sure there's no shenanigans here if people actually do vote to unionize. Let's put in a camera, which, might spook people.
And the camera is not just for when you vote. The camera is for when it is sitting there unattended, because they think that there's going to be shenanigans after hours. They probably think that because they talked about possibly trying to do it. The other thing that's crazy about this, the way they laid out how the workflow of this process, everybody votes, and then you have to put your name on it. It's not, anonymous. And then they pull them out one at a time, and they're like, okay, Bob voted to unionize. And then everybody's on the call. I guess you do it in person during normal times. And Amazon gets to look at that name and search their records and try and give any reason that should be thrown away. Like they say, wow. Oh, no. Bob is he's not a warehouse worker. He's a subcontractor so he drives for this company. Don't count that. And then they have to throw that away. And they go through every name individually. Imagine the misery of that call.
Amazon's like, Hey, we want to install cameras to watch the counting of the ballots while you guys are angry because you're being surveilled all the time.
Yeah, it is kind of an ironic thing, right? Like,
It's about as miserable as one of those calls where it's like, when I rotate my iPhone and back, it's got extra padding on the side. It's like, that's a bug in the iPhone. I can't. There's nothing I can do about that.
and when it comes
Can you
to
just call up Google?
yeah, call Mr. Google and explain
Get him
that
on
to
the phone.
But when it comes to labor laws and companies doing things that they probably shouldn't, Amazon is certainly not alone. Up there at the top with the other big tech companies, they're all kind of nasty to their workers. Google in particular had some interesting rules about pay.
Google promises not to muzzle staff on pay, settling labor case. So I guess some people were using internal Google tools to figure out, like, hey, why is he a class 3 engineer and I'm a class 4 engineer? I don't understand.
Or I think it was more like, why is he class 3 and I'm making less as a class 3, as a female class 3?
Well, there you go.
And Google was like, no, we don't talk about that internally. And that is kind of like, I think some companies have rules against it, but everywhere it's sort of like a moray. Like, oh, you don't talk about that. And these people, these young communists, they're all about it. And Google tried to silence them.
That's
can't
not
do that.
okay.
Yeah, not right. Microsoft has a big contract, really big.
Potentially.
And I got to wonder, I understand the advantages of this technology, but that's a big number. My tax dollars. Is there not more important things right now? Are we not?
That's part
Like
of the
the fact that
infrastructure
our
bill.
water supplies are being poisoned
Yeah.
literally every other week.
Or, you know, we're having an issue with the immigration and all that stuff. That's a bit of a crisis. We are having the supply chain stuff, the chip shortage. I would rank all of these higher than this.
Microsoft wins U.S. Army contract for augmented reality headsets worth up to $21.9 billion over 10 years. So they could take delivery of up to 120,000 augmented reality headsets. That seems like a lot of headsets.
Yeah.
When can I buy these at Army Surplus?
But what I wonder about is how hardened are they in terms of, can I get dust in them? Can I get them underwater?
Not right now, probably, but maybe they'll be okay by then.
I don't think the modern battlefield is a good place for that kind of technology. Well, who knows? They are not
I'm
alone.
imagining. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm imagining like Steve, 1989. He's doing reviews of MREs, and he's like, "Also, I got this at the Army surplus store." And then he does a review.
It has a built-in copy of Beat Saber.
And Steve would
Nice.
tell us that it's the best AR headset in the world, and it's amazing, and you should
Yeah.
totally try one, and it would be a lie, just like his MRE reviews. His MREs are nasty.
He's back. He's back. He just posted the other
I didn't
day.
know he went anywhere.
He was kind of gone for a little bit, or maybe we weren't seeing him because of the algorithm. But he posted.
I lost interest. I don't know. It's one of those YouTube channels that I was like just binging and going crazy, and every time there was a new one, I'd watch it, and then one day I was just done with it.
We've got to build Feature Man a new video editing computer like ASAP.
Yeah, talk about ASAP because the clock is ticking.
Oh,
He's been doing a lot of PO box unboxings lately,
Yeah.
so I think he would be up for that.
Hmm.
Should we reach out to him?
Yeah.
All right. See if I can get his email address. Somebody's going to pretend to be us. But
Yeah.
Sorry.
Microsoft is not alone in trying to get into the AR game. Another big player.
Apple is aiming to introduce or announce its mixed reality headset with in-person event in next several months. This is going to be the Newton of augmented reality headsets. I can already feel it.
Yeah, I don't know about. It seems like a big headset doesn't match the cult style profile,
Yeah.
right?
Not only that, I mean the M1 is one of Apple's biggest successes since the iPhone. Think of all of the duds between like the iPhone and the iPad and the Apple M1. So this is going to begin another cycle of products from Apple that don't make any sense. Touch bar, butterfly keyboards.
You will be able to find one of these on Surplus shortly after. I have a feeling you might not care. Cryptocurrency, of course, continues to be huge because that Bitcoin price just keeps going up. I don't really keep up with Ethereum, but I think it's also rising. Not quite as much, but you'd still be very happy if you bought it a couple of years ago. And when it comes to normie consumption of cryptocurrency, there really is only one reliable game in town, I would say, wouldn't you?
Yes.
And that is Coinbase.
Coinbase is decided to list itself April 14th. You think its stock is just going to be immediately meteoric? It's going to be like the old Netscape days?
I don't know. It's interesting. They're not doing new shares. They're not doing a public offering. It's just, they're listing. So, yeah, it's got all the buzzwords, right? But at the same time, you got to look at all these other companies that's getting into the space.
Visa and PayPal would definitely be an existential threat to them.
The thing about Coinbase that kills me is I understand they have to have that security, and I do appreciate the security. But at the same time, I can't tell you how many times I'm like, you know what? Let me just throw Bitcoin's down. Let me just throw $100 in there. And Coinbase is like, nah, bro. We don't. Your IP has changed recently, so we're gonna make you wait 48 hours.
Wow.
So it's difficult, and after 48 hours, you don't want to do it anymore. So
yeah.
Here's a crazy story that when you talk about, patent trolling and stuff like that, this is maybe at the top of the mountain. But amazingly enough, the common names that you think about when you come up to these ridiculous lawsuits and trying to just get an IP catalog and abuse it, are actually the victims here, which is kind of refreshing, maybe.
SCO Linux Fear, Uncertainty, and Doubt returns from the dead with IBM's response in this article. So it's Zinus? Zinus? I don't know. I'm going to call it Zinus because my sinuses are congested.
Yeah.
They bought the rights. SCO went bankrupt because of this. Literally this. Like, SCO actually had a reasonably okay, successful commercial Unix, and they just gouged their customers until non-existence. And they became a patent troll, which is how most of these companies die. It's how Oracle will probably ultimately die, although they're doing a reasonable job with their cloud thing, so maybe they've got a reprieve from death for now. But SCO, this company is returned, and they said, IBM is infringing on it. But instead of Linux this time, they were saying some of IBM's products, like AIX, were infringing on SCO's copyright, which...
Because it originated all from that original thing.
So, I don't think this will be successful. But then again, I would have said that Oracle would never have been as successful as they are with the APIs against Google. Maybe SCO's big problem was one of timing and not one of just being a patent copyright troll.
But also, the political winds, more and more big tech companies are under the crosshairs.
Yeah.
So maybe right now you get a judge or a jury that's like, IBM. Yeah, they're big tech.
Yeah.
They must be wrong.
They've obviously acted unethically.
And they have.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make them guilty of this.
Meanwhile, Apple unethically gets the FTC to go after Qualcomm, and nothing will happen to them for that, for misleading the FTC about FRAND and all that.
And speaking of corporations who are just doing terrible things, and again, we go back to getting somebody on the phone, because I'm not sure that anybody at Sega necessarily knew this was going to happen. I think mostly this was automated. But they tried. They were like, okay, we did what you wanted, but the AI juggernaut on the other end, that Sonic the Hedgehog-shaped AI, keeps spinning and rolling into them over and over.
We need one of those "Don't tread on me" flags, but instead of, or "Don't step on snake" or whatever, but instead of it's the algorithm and it's us, because it's like, once again, the algorithm has got the man down.
Or that fantastic snail that we had earlier.
Yeah. We still don't have a name for him, but that's okay. The chat will give us one.
Sega lawyers demand immediate suspension of Steam database over alleged piracy. So the algorithm, Sega's algorithm, picked up an information page about a game as containing a game, which was incorrect. And the company, it's really just two people. It's a hobby. It would be like Level 1 getting one of these things.
It's just the Steam API. All they do is hit the Steam API and show you all the information you can glean from that. Anybody could do it.
And it's just like the game, like information about the game.
How many people are playing it? How many installs? How many launches? And stuff like that.
And they emailed back and said, "Okay, well, but this is just information about the
But
game.
they took the page down.
You can't
it's
download
gone.
it." Well, they didn't respond immediately, so they took it down. And then Sega contacted Cloudflare to say this customer's not complying. Gosh, that sounds familiar. It's like, oh, he's resisting arrest, or it's coming straight for us.
But even Cloudflare, they're like, we're not really sure what to do here because Sega's not responding. And all these limitations are timing out. We're supposed to take this down, but we know this is not real. And the copyright law is so disgusting that they might not be able, even though everybody knows it's not real, they might not be able to ignore it, which is just
So stupid.
The algorithm crushing. It's like, and like, if you have a hobby project like that and you have to deal with that, doesn't it make you just want to not live anymore?
Well,
Right.
certainly would make you want to not do the hobby
Bother.
project anymore. NFTs, man, NFTs are hot right now. And everybody is trying to figure out a way to get in on it.
I was reading a post on a forum. Somebody bought one of those for some obscene amount of money. And they were like, hey, it's not working anymore. And it's like, yeah, the NFT was just a link to something on the internet. Like, the link is still there, but the token is not part of the blockchain. It's just the link.
So wait, the thing in the blockchain was the link?
Yes.
And the link is dead?
Yep.
That's hilarious.
Wow.
That's maybe a little bit more of a ripoff than this one, but still, I just can't see the value here.
The NBA on NFT. Top Shot is playing the long game in the NFT craze.
So this one right here, this is, this big dunk where he just basically ran over that guy. This was the top selling one ever.
$208,000 US.
But you can go on this Top Shot website, and they actually have, a marketplace for NFTs that come from NBA games.
But
Moments.
If you don't save that and this website disappears, there's all you own is the little marker.
Now, is that true? They're not actually putting the video encoding
Right.
onto the blockchain. They also said that they tested some of the software, and anytime they talked about crypto or blockchain, if they used those words, the NBA audience was like, no, not a part of that. Give me basketball. And they're like, just a moment. It's a moment. You want to buy a moment? Yes. Yes, I want moments.
There's something so dystopian about all of this where it's like it's not enough just to own an obscene amount of objects. You also have to own like moments in time. Everything is monetized.
But I think that's actually good because owning it doesn't do anything bad to it, and it doesn't deprive anybody else from enjoying whatever that is. If a wealthy person buys a piece of art and puts it up somewhere, unless it's been like really carefully preserved or a copy made of it or whatever, no one else can enjoy it.
But that's definitely true. The art, if we're going to call it art, the art is fine. But on the other end, that's the same argument I believe is snake oil.
Yeah.
Like what is this person buying? What value are you giving?
Listen, if I had some of these and I could sell it to a wealthy person and they were happy, I would certainly be happy as well.
I suppose. It does create an interesting thing where eventually there'll be a marketplace, I imagine, for these. And things like sporting events will have... It'll be happening in real time that we measure the value of your performance in actual dollars. Like, okay, the third minute of the third quarter, you had 2 steals, 4 rebounds, and that was an amazing minute for you. $100,000.
Here's your NBA 2023, championship ring, which is also a USB drive that contains the the encryptographic tokens for this, that, and the other thing that happened during the championship, whatever.
Yeah, we're getting into a weird place. And the big question, I think, is what do we turn into NFTs and start selling immediately?
Store.level1text.com.
Pick up.
Crystal, what were you
Another
gonna
thing
say?
with like the NFT stuff too, it's like, sure, like it's there's still a copy of other things out there, so like you can still watch the video clip somewhere else. But like,
Right.
how long before they start trying to jack the price up by saying like, oh, I bought this and only I can own it. Same thing they do with like artwork.
Legally, I don't think they don't have that right.
There's not a
right?
precedent for it yet, but
The copyrighted work doesn't exist on the blockchain. It's just a reference to it.
Yeah, so I don't think they could stop you. That might change.
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of.
I could see this. The NFT thing actually would be a great way for handling real estate records, for a period of, thousands or tens of thousands of years. Think about really old cities like Rome. It's like you needed, something with blockchain would have been useful for property records that are immutable and go back thousands of years.
I think they actually were working on that. But NFT is not the way to do that.
No, well, I mean,
use the
same kind of mechanism.
Use the same existing title infrastructure, but just record it on a blockchain. SpaceX had another interesting flight this week or last week.
Did you see the pictures from the beach and like the area, like the wildlife? There's just like birds and stuff that are on rocket parts. They're like, what is going on? SpaceX Mars rocket prototype explodes during test flight. I was using the power of my brain to psychically communicate that with you. I forgot that you had to read it. My bad.
So it came down in heavy fog, and you couldn't actually see the explosion. But when the fog lift blew away, there was no Starship.
I wonder.
Well, there was a Starship, but it was scattered all over the beach and the road. And
do you think the fog had anything to do with it? It was like the AI camera system was like the holographic banana. It was like, I don't know what to do with this.
I wonder how much it needs cameras, because it's got an altimeter, don't you think? Probably. And it's got the orientation. I'm sure it doesn't need cameras to know its orientation.
If that was the failure, I'm sure we'll never know. Like only like 20 years from now, the scientist that was working on that is like, remember when Musk lost his mind because there was a bug? If the rocket was landing in fog, it thought it was sideways.
I mean, if we look at Tesla's other projects,
that would never happen.
They certainly rely on cameras, perhaps a little too much.
I assume that they are cleaning up all the debris, and they're not just going to leave it to sit.
Eventually, yeah.
These days, everybody has their own streaming service. I just saw that new one, Peacock.
Yeah.
People are getting into that. Now you got Paramount. They got rid of, what was the thing that Discovery was on? CBS.
CBS All Access, right?
Yeah, right. So CBS All Access is gone. Now that's Paramount Plus. Oh. Everybody's got to be a plus. And it's just churn. There's so many of them. What do you do? But thankfully, it seems like when they finally run their course and they're ready to die, there will be a predator there to gobble them up. And maybe we can consolidate back into something sane.
T-Mobile cuts its own TV cord and moves to partner with YouTube TV. So T-Mobile said, you know what? We're out. It's just crazy negotiating with these media companies. We're just going to let YouTube deal with that for us.
And you do get an extra $10 off per month, at least for now, for being a T-Mobile customer. I think at this point, I could never have YouTube TV because of the number of times they've annoyed me with that pop-up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really think you'd like this. Well, just give it to me.
I do like what the guy says, where he's like, people don't want more streaming services. They just want help navigating the services that already exist. And it's like, wow, that's refreshingly honest. I mean, he's still wanting the money, but...
Can you imagine something like the Plex service, where you give the Plex service is like, I'm going to give you $7 a month, and this is the kind of stuff that I like to watch. And, after a few months, it accumulates, and it's got like $20 or $30. And then it pops up and it's like, here, in your account, you've got like $30. Here's all the stuff, the media that I can broker a deal for you to have on your Plex server. And it's forever, because it's like you can buy the digital media from somewhere. And, with that $7 or $8 subscription just building over a long period of time, eventually your media library would be incredible.
Everything you just described is the polar opposite of what media companies want.
Yeah.
And yet it's what people would buy.
Well, what was the Clubhouse? Yeah, Clubhouse was real hot there for a while. I don't know if they've done an Android version yet.
Clubhouse is to audio chat as Slack is to IRC.
It is weird. I can't imagine if more than 4 people have the ability to talk in one of these rooms, that it's not just chaos. You have to manage that somehow. But everybody wants to be a part of it, and if you're a company that happens to have just way too much money right now, why not buy a bunch of them?
Spotify jumps into social audio, acquires sports-focused live audio app. The acquisition comes amid a surge of interest in live audio following the meteoric rise of Clubhouse, an app that has drawn more than 10 million users in under a year. Do you think the Clubhouse would have been as successful if everybody wasn't cripplingly lonely from lack of contact during a pandemic?
Probably had something to do with it. But I think it still would be successful.
Oh, there's human contact in the magic black brick.
I think there's still a lot of really pathetic people out there who are just dying to know every thought that Elon Musk has. And as long as he's on Clubhouse, I think it would be successful.
That's scary.
Yeah, it is.
Subscribe to our Patreon to listen to our podcast. Equally
Which we haven't done in like 3 months. Kristen,
we
now's
need
not
to do.
the time.
We're behind.
Now's not the time to advertise. We're gonna catch up.
We're trying. We're just clawing.
We got to do the Q&A this week too. We got lots of questions. Submit yours now.
Now, if you've been waiting to get on the crypto bandwagon because you say to yourself, hey, listen, crypto, you can't really use it. I need something that I'm going to be able to get out there and spend. I need to spend that money. Well, maybe you got a few new options.
PayPal has launched checkout with crypto service. Yeah. So with PayPal, you can check out with crypto now.
This is interesting because there's no fee, but there is a spread, which is pretty common in the financial world. So what's going to happen here is technically we're not going to charge you a percentage, but when we go out to the market to pick up your crypto that you're about to spend, you might not get the best price because we might keep a little bit of that. So that's maybe not the worst way to do that. But at the big thing here is apparently these are not, there is no person-to-person crypto spending here. You cannot move this crypto in and out of a PayPal account or control it at all other than to spend it through the PayPal spending platform.
Yeah, they're using one of those artificial blockchains to keep track of the settling, I think. Didn't we have a story on that?
You're getting confused. It's Visa.
Oh, that's Visa.
That you're thinking about, because Visa is also getting into the crypto game. We talked about this a couple weeks ago, maybe last week, and my question was, how are they going to settle that? Because it seems dangerous to just float Bitcoin all day. Well, now we have the answer.
Visa is using stablecoin to settle their transactions, and they're hoping that that will also lure all of the financial technology companies, the fintechs, if you will.
Certainly safer than doing the other way.
So this is a blockchain that, by design, follows the value of fiat currency, which is probably not a terrible idea right now because it seems like we're heading into another era of just incredible inflation. Just bananas level inflation.
And speaking of bananas, did you go watch the hottest movie
I did not
in the world this weekend?
Literally didn't care.
Well, a lot of people did. I think actually most of them were in China. I don't even know if it's open here, did it? I watched it.
I haven't seen a movie in ages.
Was it any good?
I didn't watch it in the theater, but when the monsters were on the screen, it was amazing. I mean, they did a really good job with these monsters. And this goes even going back to Toho. You know, it's easy to be like, oh, these Americans have ruined it. But even in the Toho movies, when the monsters weren't on the screen, it was like, oh, come on. What are we talking about here? The thing that drove me most crazy about it, because teenagers. There's a couple of teenagers, and you follow their adventures through most of the movie, and it's like, oh, there's monsters fighting. You're showing me teenagers. But then they're like, oh, the Godzilla and the Kongs, they're ancient enemies. There was a great war once upon a time on the Hollow Earth, and the two almost wipe each other out. And I'm sitting there thinking, can we see that? That sounds interesting. Really would love to see that. But anyway, I've spoiled the headline.
Box office, Godzilla vs. King set a global record during this unprecedented time.
Also, this looks like a screenshot from Kong from the movie. This is Godzilla from the 90s. Can I get a better one of him?
The trailer also made King Kong seem rather huge. I don't think King Kong is normally that large, is he?
No, they mess with it. But the original Godzilla vs. Kong movie, they were the same size.
Oh, okay.
I mean, how else are you going to do that? It's almost, you have to play it in such a way that Godzilla it's like Batman versus Superman. It's not realistic. Godzilla's so much better. He's got all these extra powers. They fought in the water at one point, and it's like, come on, guys.
So would Godzilla rather fight, a Godzilla-sized King Kong or 100 King Kong-sized Godzillas?
I think you got to go one-on-one. That's the way to do it. Yeah, actually, I felt like they did a really good job because they did it. Kong was clearly the good guy in this situation, and Godzilla was the bad guy. And they did it kind of like pro wrestling. So, like, first encounter, Kong's in chains. They're in the water. He's sedated, and he just gets, beaten terribly. But as a viewer, you're like, no, it's not fair. Kong needs another shot when he's fresh and he's not in chains and it's not in the water, and they set you up for the next one. Then it's Kong versus the Flying Serpents, a nice squash match to remind you how good Kong really is, to set you up for the final, and then there's a run in it. I'm not going to spoil that one for you. We talked about Mr. Stallman in the past couple of weeks, and
ooh, that hasn't settled down at all.
After the controversy, he basically said, nope, I'm here and I'm not going anywhere. And I got to say, I think that is the only move when cancel culture comes after you.
Yeah.
You cannot apologize. You can't back down. You just have to say, no, I'm not doing it.
Is it okay to reiterate that you are not, in fact, going to eat children?
I don't think you bring that up. Say as little as possible. But even when you do that,
somebody might take that the wrong way.
Yeah, even if you hold the line, I think he's doing the right thing, it might not be enough.
The Open Source Initiative, they've written a letter for RMS's reappointment to the Board of Free Software, and it's like, look, no, you have to hold them accountable for past behavior. So they're not on board, and that's...
And they're out. They're out of the Free Software Foundation. I think Red Hat as well, right?
Yeah.
Red Hat also pulled out.
I have to admit, there's a level of nuance here that's going on that I don't understand.
Well, it's I suppose both sides have some pretty relevant points, but we have to drill down to what's best for everybody, and I just don't think we're ever going to agree on that.
Do I care that my roofer is a flat earther, especially if he's a damn fine roofer?
I guess that's a little bit different because, well, does your roofer go around harassing round earthers?
Not unless they bring it up.
Well, again, when you bring in the sex and gender type of thing, that's still not okay. Even if the round earthers are walking around in crop tops and booty shorts, still not okay.
Mighty fine flat earth today we're having. It doesn't go out of your way to let you know he's a flat earther, but
sweetie, the earth might be flat, but that ass ain't. Work it. And we have.
Why can't we retain any female talent? I just don't understand.
He wasn't that overt with it, was he?
No. Well, I don't. He was in the past. Like in the past, when he would latch on, in the past, I think what was happening was that he would latch on to something that he thought was an intellectual defect in an argument that he was making. But, to like what I think Krista would say, he's never experienced that. And so he doesn't understand what is trying to be communicated to him.
I've heard a good argument about the Cuomo thing that's kind of the same. It's a matter of, this is a person who has been in a weird position of power and maybe never really learned how to interact with women properly. And this worked for him for a long time. But now it doesn't. So I guess it doesn't excuse anything, but it's interesting to think about. Taking a time warp back to 2018, you might remember that Tesla had their own spat with the unions, and a lot of people were talking about unionizing. Mr. Musk was not a fan of that, and as usual, he went to Twitter to voice his concerns. And finally, the U.S. Labor Board has made a ruling here.
Tesla broke U.S. labor law with anti-union efforts, according to this watchdog, with a single tweet. The tweet was, well, if they unionize, they're not going to have stock options anymore. That was not okay.
And you're not allowed to make that threat. And they did say, yes, we think that is a threat. You can't do it. He has to delete that tweet. I bet that hurts him more than the penalty that he has to pay.
From 2018?
Yeah.
He probably just rolled his eyes and was like, fine. Click.
Probably made somebody else do it. I'm not doing it. And another threat, perhaps, to his empire as another company, and this one is a name that we know, getting into the big EV game.
Chinese smartphone maker Xiaomi to make EVs using the Great Wall's plant, according to sources. So that's a lot to unpack in that headline. There's a battery manufacturing plant called the Great Wall. They're going to make batteries for electric vehicles.
And they have never made car stuff before at Great Wall. So this is new to them. They didn't mention what kind of, like these are going to be mid-range cars or whatever, but I imagine they'll be like entry-level mid-range. We'll probably never see them.
I noticed that you deliberately left out 3 or 4 stories this week about new breakthrough battery technologies.
Yeah. The carbon
No, this
fiber
time
battery.
it's going to be the one.
I'm not wasting my time reading about a carbon fiber battery until you can show it to me.
Mail it to us. We'll play with it.
So the Amazon drivers, we have learned, are going to get a new friend in the van with them. It's going to be an AI friend watching them with a camera at all times. And that sounds terrible. But for some reason, this was too much. I would be more okay with this than the other stuff the camera does. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes. Amazon drops plan to track mask wearing by drivers with cameras. All that other stuff that they're doing with cameras, that's still on. But they're not going to automatically flag your behavior for not wearing a mask with the camera. What kind of, like, this has got to be a distraction.
And I got to think that they are going to flag it. They're just not going to make it public, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's literally HAL, the HAL 9000. It's like HAL, unlock the van. It's like, I'm sorry, Dave, I can't do that. You're too terrible of an employee. I'm just going to drive back to the warehouse and get a new Dave.
A new Dave.
I still see some people driving alone, and if you're not alone, maybe it makes sense. But I've seen people driving alone wearing masks. Isn't the cabin filter on a car way better than any mask you're
Yeah, I don't
wearing?
really understand that as much.
I've done that a few times just because I've got like 3 or 4 stops I've got to make, and I just don't want to think about messing with my mask the entire time.
Yeah,
I guess
that's
that makes more sense.
all those calories.
No, sometimes I'll get out of the thing and just forget I'm wearing it, or forget that I need to wear it.
Well, you wouldn't forget that if you were on a plane, because that is a flying petri dish. And
Yes, it is.
now that the airlines are trying to get back to doing business, they got to try to figure out something to make those passengers feel better about that.
Swiss robots use UV light to zap viruses aboard passenger planes. What was it? What was the robot's name? Violet? I can't remember. The one from the hospitals. So
I don't
she's got a
remember.
stewardessing job now.
Either.
Although, looks like she's got some attachments, some new attachments to do the disinfecting.
I think stewardess is sexist.
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
think it's flight attendant now.
Sorry. Flight attendant. I didn't mean to assume the robot's gender. My sincere apologies.
But it makes sense. I got to think though that it's basically just they don't have a great picture of it. We saw it in the video there.
There's a video, yeah. It looks like in the video, though, that it's being pulled with a rope.
Yeah, well, I mean, why put a motor in that?
But I mean, at that
push it.
point, why not just have your actual people go through with UV lights instead of spending all this money on a very expensive cart?
Well, that's my criticism of this thing, is there's going to be a lot of surface area that light's never going to touch.
Yeah.
It's got wings.
Yeah, but as the seats rotate down and the cracks in between the seats and stuff under the seats.
Well, the article and the pictures in the article made me think of this thing as like the slowest moving thing ever. So maybe that would be enough UV light with all the stuff that's bouncing around.
How much is the exposure time? That's a good point. Maybe that's why there's the rope, because you want to drag it and then let it sit on a row and then drag it and let it sit in a row. Something like that.
But again, imagine you're like already an overworked flight attendant and they're like, we need you to pull this really heavy cart. And she's like, can I just wave the UV things over it, And they're like, no, you have to pull the cart.
We need a better article on this. Where is Kyle Uyghurs?
I imagine that the wands, the UV wands, are not putting out nearly enough power either, right?
Yeah.
This thing's really probably lighting up that plane.
Yeah.
Wonder if that has I imagine that has to have some kind of effect on the longevity of the materials of the seats and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The tray
Yeah.
tables.
They'll break down in UV light almost all materials too. Yeah. It's like those suntan glasses that are just like the opaque plastic except for a tiny little black piece of It's like, when you go on the plane, you got to be wearing one of those. Otherwise, the robot just blinds you.
I'm sure the person who's dragging the robot with the rope does have to have some kind of vision protection.
This is my beekeeper outfit that has, a welding harness on top for eye protection.
And that was our first robot story. And our next robot story, it's time to pour some out for one of the fallen.
Drink.
Again, I don't think that she will be missed.
No,
much at all.
not at all.
Microsoft shuts down Cortana on iOS and Android. Farewell, Cortana.
RIP.
Krista, do you think that had anything to do with gender?
No.
I
think it's just no one. I don't like any of the little assistants on anything.
I don't. It might not have been in this article. It was a story I think I left out because it was gender based, and why argue about it? But it said that people overwhelmingly trust female AI voices more than male.
That's interesting.
I thought Cortana had a male voice in the UK.
Oh. I think this study was in the UK that I was reading. Interesting.
Meanwhile, Cortana is still there when you install Windows 10. It just won't go away. It's like a bad penny.
Now, because everybody hates Cortana, and let's say they get rid of Cortana entirely, but they do another Halo video game, is she going to be there?
Yes, absolutely.
Think so?
Because they really liked her everybody really likes her in.
But now, do we hate her now?
In Halo? Well, I mean, she's just not a competent assistant.
Can we separate the two?
I think.
Are any of them though? Like Bixby's also awful.
Yes, Bixby is perhaps the worst. Like, what is even Samsung thinking?
But they got
every
rid
time
of.
It's like, oh, do you want to use this? And I'm like, please, no. I didn't mean to hit this button.
But they changed the right swipe. It's not Bixby anymore. It's something else now. Something equally useless.
You can install an app that'll let you change it, but you can't change it out of the box.
But they changed it.
It still ultimately leads to Bixby.
But they call it something else. It's like it's not the Bixby homepage.
I don't remember.
It's you know what?
Bixby is worse than useless. Like, they're all useless. They're all terrible. You know what really just drives me insane? It's like we have all these assistants and we have all this stuff and it's like this whiz-bang technology and basic quality of life things with a phone.
Samsung Free.
Oh.
Is what it is now.
Yeah.
Do you want to update it? No, I don't think I do.
No, because it's going to install a bunch of spyware and be terrible. Because our basic experience with mobile phones is still god-awful. Things like, I'm going to set some applications and save some files on my phone and like save some pictures and save ringtones. I'm going to put some MP3 ringtones on my phone.
Wait. You said on the phone? I think you meant the cloud.
What year is it?
Yeah, I was like, oh, I'm sorry, you're not using Google Drive. Let me just delete all your stuff. That's your punishment for not using Google Drive.
Do better next time.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically how it is.
Well, OpenAI has GPT-3, and it is pretty incredible. And it's interesting because they're talking about in this article, they're like, some people are even looking at ways to put this into production in business. Well, let me tell you something. The Chinese Amazon sellers are way ahead of you. Because if you see there's a lot of descriptions and they have brackets around the bullet points about the product. I guarantee that's an AI because it's written so poorly. It's not just bad translation. It's bad translation and AI doing the copywriting.
OpenAI's text-generating system GPT-3 is now spewing out 4.5 billion words a day. People really like GPT-3 because it's almost convincing.
It's definitely a cool thing. AI Dungeon now has a survival mode.
Ooh.
You can't alter it at all. It remembers everything, supposedly, and you have to try to stay alive. I lasted 15 prompts in my first attempt. It's a cannibal island.
Oh. Oh, it's the forest.
Yeah, it's a lot like that, actually. Well, the 15 lines that I saw of it before I was killed. Tesla's full self-driving update. It's this is a little bit older story, so this came out a while back, but I couldn't help but include it because they point out some very obviously bad things about it.
Tesla's full self-driving beta is just laughably bad and potentially dangerous. Before you downvote, go check out the article because it's got some rather compelling evidence. I would be interested in seeing your calmly written textual rebuttal before considering my opinion.
And there's a video. that points out what the early beta testers are experiencing, and it's pretty terrifying.
I don't know if I saw this earlier in the week, and yeah. So I think on the video there's a really amazing content in the whole AI. So even with AI, even with these wonderful models, garbage in, garbage out, that still rules. When we talk about algorithmic bias and it's like the algorithm is racist or the algorithm is sexist or whatever, yeah, because the data set that it's built on was trained on was built by human beings with those characteristics. That's how it works. This is based on millions and millions of miles of people driving Teslas. This data set, it makes sense. The Tesla drives like an idiot Tesla driver. It's working perfectly.
Like a self-important.
Yes.
Like everything, the world revolves around me.
Yeah, like, you know,
like
how
everybody else when I'm making a turn.
When you're turning left through an intersection and you drift into the other lane, those drivers always do that. The AI is working perfectly.
I hadn't thought about
People
it like
don't
that.
understand that. They think that like anything computer is just like some sort of black magic, and they don't realize like a human has to input something for it to spit out the thing that you want.
Well, Chris, so when is the last time that you visited the Level 1 Minecraft server?
Oh, it's been a little bit. I've been meaning to check it out again. I saw some posts on there. People found pandas on the forum, and I was like, oh, I should go check that out, but I haven't been.
But you didn't.
AMD
I
sent
didn't
us
go.
hardware for a new Minecraft server.
That's nice. I don't know if Linode, I don't think they're charging us for it.
No, they're not. Well, they probably, we're supposed to move it in like April, I think.
All right. Well, it's been a good run. I don't know how popular it is at this point.
It still has a lot of people.
Really?
Yeah, there's still quite a few people posting in the forum with like screenshots and stuff.
Well, anyway, maybe we could breathe some new life into it by doing some AI machine learning stuff with it. Why not?
Watch an artificial intelligence grow a walking caterpillar in Minecraft. Yeah, you gotta check out this video because it is kind of mind-blowing. It's Conway's Game of Life, but in Minecraft.
But
because why
souped
not?
up. Because in the Game of Life, there's two kinds of blocks, black and white. And in this, there was what, 35?
Yeah. I really like the it's also mind-blowing that the Game of Life is Turing complete. And so there's a video of somebody building the Game of Life in the Game of Life. Like the building the computer and the logic to run the Game of Life in the Game of Life, and it is mind-blowing.
So, yeah, that's something you can get into if you want to with Minecraft. That's not really a playable experience, but
Yeah.
it's fun to think about. It's fun to look at us trying to recreate the building blocks of life.
On this week's episode of The Runaway Inflation is Upon Us.
Yeah, this is it's I always get these like Flippy, for example. Flippy just makes you so happy. You're like, oh, look at him. He's so happy and he's doing his thing. And then you think about, you know,
All the people
sitting at home that used to do that job. And they keep pointing out, and we've talked about this from the beginning when we talk about automation and robots. There's always a paragraph at the end. It's like, oh, it's not going to replace workers. Don't worry. How can you make that argument here?
Boston Dynamics' new robot doesn't dance. He has a warehouse job. You should check out the video because this is coming to a UPS and or USPS distribution facility. Oh, well, I take that back. As long as DeJoy is in charge, this is never coming to the Postal Service. But UPS and FedEx, man, they've probably got an order in for 100 already.
So the big thing about this guy, the most impressive thing, of course, is his little head unit. I don't know what you call it. It's gripper. It's a vacuum controlled. Yeah, sucker's probably the best word for it. Vacuum controlled, and it can pick up almost any kind of box up to, was it 30-some pounds?
Yeah.
Impressive.
It can pick up ammo boxes.
But more impressively is it's incredibly lightweight, and its arm is incredibly lightweight, and it's also really well balanced, and it understands its own balance so that when it's picking up a heavy box, there's no risk of it falling over.
Huh.
Yeah.
The one thing I noticed in the video that I watched is that in the demo, it's always picking up the same size box. I wonder if strange loads would throw it off a little bit.
They talked about that. They don't have the more advanced suction cup arm yet, but they're working on it to have non-flat surfaces be picked up as well. And that'll be necessary.
Yeah. So everybody always mails a soccer ball by just putting a label on it.
But if you have 3 employees now, right? One who picks the items, one who boxes the items, and one who carries the boxes to their destination. Now you need one person.
This thing schlepped its own conveyor belt into one of the trucks to unload it too. That was just mesmerizing. Because it's like, oh, it's a truck full of boxes, and it just, literally hauls the conveyor belt behind it, and then it's just like, and the truck's unloaded.
And this guy, they talk about the how it's not going to replace people and all that stuff, and it's not working together, it's not dancing. But in the video, it does a little kind of like, there's 2 of them, and they're moving in perfect unison.
Yeah.
And it has that thing like chickens and owls, I guess all birds have it, where the head is just sitting still independently while the body's doing all kinds of stuff down there.
Yeah, like a gimbal.
Yeah. It's amazing. We're going to be seeing a lot more of these guys.
Yes.
And a lot more homelessness.
I'll say, like, on one hand, it is very, very cool, but on the other, it's like, man, that has devastating consequences.
Never been a better time to learn to be a programmer and or developer.
Yeah, if you're working on robots. Somebody's got to service these guys, too.
Yeah.
Spend your life traveling around to Amazon warehouses, fighting through picket lines and servicing the robots.
It's literally going to be like from the RoboCop movies.
With less live ammunition.
Or more. All right, we'll see you Friday.
Krista, give us Robot Apocalypse goodbye.
Bye. That was kind of robot-y.
That should have been a Theranos goodbye.
But your
I can't go very deep, though.
Your robot arms were perfectly smooth. They didn't ever stop. Like you did the opposite of the robot.
I can't.
You're too human, Krista.
I'm too human. I need to watch some Zuckerberg videos where he eats toast.
I spiked into the red there. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have screamed.
Hey everybody, today's April 9th, and we're doing social and nonsense. It is still 2021, and as Wendell reminded us in the first episode, the year is a quarter over, which is
more than a quarter over at this point.
Yeah, at this point for them.
It's actually like 26 or 27% now.
They're a week in. Also, we forgot to disclaim at the beginning, but this episode in particular, I didn't vet any April Fool's stuff. If I got caught with April Fool's, you're getting caught with April Fool's. Feel free to tell us that we're stupid, but I don't have time to chase down every dumb idea that some reporter.
But if you do tell us,
most of the time it's pretty easy to tell, but occasionally they just slip through.
Yeah, but in the nonsense section, it's going to be way more difficult.
If you do tell us we're stupid, you also have to tell us that you still love us.
Not legally required.
or they just unsubscribe and never come back. Rip.
Yeah, there we go.
Rip.
Well, this one was the social media section, probably not as risky, but this one was published March 31st. I'm going to say that if you April Fools, you have to do it on April 1st, right?
Yeah.
That's the rule. This one should be.
Volkswagen did not do that.
Should be free.
Volkswagen, really?
But this is certainly not something that's unfamiliar to YouTube creators, is it?
No. Oh, The Verge reports that Facebook shorted video creators thousands of dollars in ad revenue due to a technical issue. It's like, well, hang on a second there, Professor. We fixed the glitch. It'll just work itself out naturally.
And that is what they've said. So when people pointed out that they have a little tool that you can go and see roughly how much you might be getting from them. And this guy was a scuba guy. He does scuba videos. He was getting quite a bit, and he went and looked at his little thing, and it said $10,000 for 2 months. He got $1,000. And he said, well, that's a big difference. What could account for that? And when he finally got it in front of a human being, not because he called somebody or did anything, it escalated quite a bit. Facebook said, oh, you know what? There's a bug. So in April, supposedly, everybody gets paid out. We'll see. Maybe that's the April Fool's.
That sucks if you're a creator who needs that to like pay your rent.
Yeah. Don't do that, by the way.
Yeah.
That's not the way to live. The big Amazon union thing is certainly the biggest story for them this week, and I would say for 2021. This is the hill that they want to either die on or conquer from. And one of the ways that they're doing that, we've learned, is by manipulating social media.
Amazon's Twitter army was handpicked for, quote-unquote, great sense of humor, leaked document reveals. But if you look at it and you look at the pictures, it sure does look an awful lot like machine learning created some of these profile pictures, because it seems like they've got a lot of manipulation.
And in fact, BBC claims to have done the investigation and proven that some of them were machines.
Fake Amazon workers defend company on Twitter. So for at least a couple of them, the BBC really did a lot of work here. This is actually a pretty standard playbook that you have from ad agencies. Amazon probably did pick a few people that were real to roll them out on Twitter, but that also created an opportunity for subterfuge with an ad agency or a PR campaign. So they'll create lots of fake people and a few real ones, and then they'll say, well, we at the time in question, we created a bunch of, encouragement for real people to go forth and tweet things, but at the same time, there's also fake people. I mean, it's transparent. That's what an agency that is going to be dead in the 21st century would do.
But we're already there. We're in the 21st century already.
Well, I mean, they'll soon be dead. They're not going to survive.
The point is they're dying, and that's what matters.
There's a long time left in the 20. Like, they could die. We'd all be dead.
They are not long for this world, then.
Let's say they won't make it out of the 20s.
There we go.
And the tweets weren't just, the usual glad-handing and pro-Amazon stuff. They actually got pretty down, like, mean and nasty and argumentative, and more than you would think a PR arm of a company would go to, but they feel really strongly about this.
Amazon security staff reported its own hostile tweets as quote-unquote suspicious, fearing that they'd been hacked. So Amazon security, because those people are, fighting the good fight. They're worried about, Amazon AWS, because Amazon AWS has an enormous target on its back. Their security people are very good and very, very busy all of the time. So they were seeing what was happening on Twitter, and they were saying, this doesn't seem like Amazon. Let's just run this up the chain and make sure this is legit. Spoiler, it was.
Came right back down the chain. They're like, nope, this will continue. Also, people are doing some really hilarious stuff with the Amazon logo these days. The P-Bottle one is the best, by far. But this one's not bad either. Poor little Twitter bird. Does the Twitter bird have a name?
Tweet?
I don't think he does.
He needs one. And yes, he. That's right, I said it. I gendered him. It seems like we don't see headlines anymore, but I guess we don't see headlines because it's just so commonplace now. I doubt people have stopped ratting themselves out on social media. You got to think that's still going pretty strong, right?
But the food looks so delicious, I can't help it.
It does look good.
But yeah, this is an unusual way of doing it. Usually it's something stupid like posting a selfie with drugs and guns. Or taking a quick pic in the bedroom and not hiding the crack pipe first. Stuff like that happens.
Your Honor, that was staged. This is part of this lifestyle image that I have to create for myself.
But you do have to argue that this guy should have known better. Certainly.
Police say they found a mafia fugitive on YouTube posting cooking tutorials. So this is somebody that was in the Italian mafia, and he showed up in the Dominican Republic, earning a little bit of side money, showing his amazing cooking skills.
But he was on the run. He was hiding out because he was wanted in Italy. So this was his, retirement from the mafia. But yeah, I imagine after that lifestyle, living on a beach gets pretty boring, don't you think? Gotta whip up some pasta.
He was identified by his tattoos. That's crazy.
Yeah, his arms. He was very careful not to show his face. But it didn't save him. So just remember, when you post stuff on the internet, it's out there. Cops are looking. And this one is, it's interesting what you think your Twitter's worth.
About $30.
I'd say it'd be a decent amount, actually, because it is the people trading the coin that gives it the value. I think you could get a decent amount if you did this.
You've got a lot of followers.
You might as well register and because somebody else is going to, right?
Inside BitClout, the dystopian social network with big backers and vocal critics. So yeah, BitClout. It's a social network that's somehow tied to cryptocurrency, and anybody can just be anybody else once you show up and do stuff.
Well, I think so. Right now, you can go and you can register with a phone number and keep your place. but they've pre-registered everybody with a big Twitter account. So like Elon Musk, for example, he's probably not on this, but his profile is on this. And then you can buy and sell his coin, and the more his coin is transacted, the higher the value of his BitClout profile, which if he were to claim, he could get a piece of that money.
Everything is monetized. Like, it's just crazy.
It seems very complicated. You know who's really going to benefit from this? Click farms.
Yeah.
Because boosting up, I mean, how much work is it for them to boost a Twitter account to 5,000?
That sounds like ad fraud with more steps.
Yeah,
ultimately.
But now it's, this blockchain and it's cryptocurrency, so way easier. Way easier. You don't have to launder that money at all.
It's got the laundering mechanism built right in.
Which is why I imagine that the U.S. government will soon be taking interest in that, making some statements. I did read that NFTs, some people are kind of like breaking, like they'll get an NFT and then try to break it down into a smaller investment by selling people shares of the NFT that they just bought, and that's securities fraud. Don't do that. And the SEC is like, yep, we're going to come after that.
Wow.
For sure. Parler is back, and people seem happy about that. But the thing about it is, I think they understand that they are walking on thin ice, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
Right.
And they're not going to take too many risks with that. But at the same time, their user base expects them to, so it's the old rock in the hard place.
Parler explains that, we did alert the FBI to some violent posts, and users are mad about that because it's like, wait, this platform is not supposed to snitch. Well, it doesn't. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. This is the same kind of a thing.
But you could, actually, you're not allowed to say this. It was something about rising up. If something happens, we're going to storm the Capitol. Blah, 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 stuff like that. And so those kinds of comments in particular are hot right now. You don't want to talk about storming the Capitol right now. Pro tip, pro-insurrectionist tip. If you're going to storm the Capitol, don't talk about it, especially not on social media. Jesus.
Parler's whole promise was more like, we won't censor you. So, like, you can post whatever you want, but not, the promise wasn't, we won't work with the government if they come.
Although I would say that they implied that based on their
see
business model.
A good lawyer could definitely make that argument.
Yeah. I'm glad I don't care that I still have my Twitter account. I don't use it. I wish the world would just stop doing these things. Can we go back to that? Sometimes I feel like just walking into the ocean and letting an octopus finish me off.
Australia, a geologist was beaten up by the angriest octopus on a beach. And that headline is an accurate summary of what happened, basically.
I think there's a video of the octopus takes a swipe at him, but they did not get the actual attack on video, I don't think. So he had multiple encounters with this octopus. It wasn't just like, hey man, respect my space. It lashed out at him and he was like, whoa. Then he left, came back to the water later in another location, and the octopus found him. It was like,
I said, stay out of the ocean.
Remember me, bitch? Now, this is interesting.
Aquaman asked me to keep an eye on you.
How much do you understand about the physiology of an octopus?
It's got a beak.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it used its tentacles. They made it. The suckers on the tentacles is what it attacked with. But this guy said he used Coke because he needed something acidic to counteract, I guess, the chemical reaction. Do they have like venom or something?
I didn't think so, but now I'm going to Google that, octopus venom. That's going to be in my search history.
But he said the Coke worked. And
all octopuses are venomous, study says.
Wow. I had no idea.
But it's not super poisonous to us if we pour Coke in the wound.
Yeah, he said, I think vinegar is what you want, but he didn't have any. So he's like, well, Coke is acidic, and it worked.
There's a whole article on Wikipedia called Cephalopod Attack.
I bet that
tentacles, beak, and venom.
How would you ever get it off of you? It would be like trying to fight a roll of tape.
Huh. All octopuses have venom, but few are fatally dangerous. The greater blue-ringed octopus, however, is considered to be one of the most venomous animals known. Venom of one is enough to kill 10 grown men.
Wow. Well, that's going to make
Today we learned.
That's going to make 2 octopus facts that we're going to give you today. Now, you might have already known the one about the venom, and maybe we're just, low on octopus knowledge. But I bet you didn't know this one.
Sleeping octopuses may have dreams, but they're probably brief. So,
how do you know when an octopus is dreaming? It changes colors in its sleep.
Wow.
And they were like, well, we're not sure if this octopus is sleeping or just ignoring us. So they tested it by throwing its most favorite kind of crab. So they would like drag a crab across in front of it, and they knew that if it was awake, it was going for the crab treat. But no, it didn't. Just continued changing colors.
I saw a really interesting article that said that one possibility for why we dream, or why a lot of animals dream, is because when you're asleep, you know how your brain is doing all the maintenance tasks and committing things to long-term memory and blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. If your visual cortex is dormant, there is a possibility that other regions of the brain will encroach on that region of the brain for their functions.
So it just needs to engage me?
Yeah.
Then the obvious next question is, why does it make it so horrible?
Well, that's a you thing.
That's not just me. You can't find your class, you failed out, you're falling, you're driving and the brakes don't work. Oh man, that one gets me every time. That one's constant.
You have that? See, the only dream I have it's like a reoccurring nightmare is oh my gosh, you had a class all semester that you didn't go to, and now you're going to lose your scholarship.
I
have that exact one, but I have the brake. I have I'm punching and there's no force behind it. I'm running, but I'm moving slow.
Yeah, no, I still get those. And now I've started to get the occasional, oh crap, class started 10 minutes ago. I wonder if they've left yet.
That's a kind of a life milestone when you go from that.
Yeah, you're on the opposite end.
Yeah. Well, not to be outdone by Amazon, the Chinese Communist Party also has a way of trying to control the media and to create content when you might not actually have real content to rely on. But then they took it one step further.
This is like one of the darkest things ever. Official Chinese television has invented a fake French journalist defending the regime against allegations of genocide. So the conclusion is they would only need to do this if it was really happening.
No.
How unprofessional.
So
only do this what?
Only do this if it's really happening.
Hang on.
Well, if what's really happening? Oh, the Uyghur thing.
Yeah.
Is anybody questioning that?
I mean, well, they are.
Yeah.
My favorite thing about this is they gave this fake journalist a bio, and their university education was in archaeology. And I got to imagine a room full of communists sitting there, and it's like, let's make up a journalist. What do they do for a living? Oh, archaeology. That's exciting.
That's
They're going to love that one.
Dinosaur bones.
I tried to read some translations of like some of the justification for this, and like if you copy paste or you search and replace with like Bloods or Crips, it makes more sense. It's like no, this is not a thing. This is actually a hardened criminal sect, and so we're putting all the Bloods and the Crips in a heightened security facility, and it's like, but that's not what it really is.
But you have to join the Bloods and the Crips.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of those are also children, and it's like, are children members of the gang?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
actually, Krista, there's a lot of young Bloods and Crips.
A lot of the propaganda says that they've been, brainwashed to the point that really it would be the least tragic thing if the children were euthanized, because there's just no saving them.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's just like, maybe give them to another country that won't do that.
I don't think anybody wants them.
Somewhere. It's a big
Or maybe
planet.
just don't euthanize human beings.
Well, that's just crazy talk.
Yeah.
In Florida, speaking of euthanasia, perhaps a candidate here. Because it's crazy to me how often we see stories about people who are practicing medicine and people are letting them practice medicine on them when they are clearly not qualified.
Waste.
Man accused of drinking Four Locos while injecting Botox without a license in Florida. This was Orlando. I would have said Miami after reading the story, but I checked and nope, it's Orlando.
There's that one county. Is it Pinellas County? Or it's just the Wild West down there in Florida. Floridians.
I didn't even know you could still buy Four Loko. Like, I think it's
banned. They nerfed it. They took, I think they took down the alcohol and the caffeine.
Because I remember you could buy it forever, and then you go back to the liquor store, and then all of a sudden it was gone, and it was like, oh no, you can't sell that anymore. Maybe it's back.
Yeah, they brought it down to a level where it's acceptable to drink, but not acceptable to drink and then practice medicine. It's an important point there.
Especially you need your license. Like somebody needs to have vetted your skills.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what you're doing. Good job. Here's your certificate.
Now,
Make sure you don't accidentally also inject some like horrible infection along with the Botox.
Well, I think with Botox, it's the amount of Botox that's critical, right? Because it's basically just botulism, isn't it?
Ugh.
So you really want to be exact. And there's probably some measurements that you would do based on the person's body composition and stuff like that. And if you're pounding Four Loko before, I don't know if you're getting that preparation.
I mean, you really need a great vacuum pump in order to grow your own botulism. I mean, it's tricky stuff to deal with.
I don't know if he was creating the medicine himself. Or, see, maybe just applying it. But the woman that was doing it in one of the other stories was using rubber cement. So it's not out of the question that he's trying to make his own. Certainly. You get a few Four Locos in here and you're like, I can make this. This is easy.
It's not that hard.
It's fine.
Okay, so we were talking about you keeping some bees.
Right.
And you need to do that. But where do you find bees? That's the question. And the answer appears to be just a random parking lot. Just go to a parking lot, leave the window down.
A man returned from shopping and found 15,000 bees in his car. Do you think that Lauren M. Johnson, the journalist here, do you think she counted every bee to make sure she was reporting accurately?
That's a good question. Maybe someone counted the bees.
How does this happen? So, like, did he go in and, like, a queen landed and it was like, yes, the queen has selected the new colony and all the bees descended? Or, more likely, the bees built the nest in the vehicle, and when he moved the car, as soon as the car had been stopped for a long time, the bees were flying around to figure out WTF happened.
You should scroll down and show the chat if they're watching. There's a picture of the guy like opening the door and it's just a swarm of bees.
My bee knowledge is not great, but I believe I think there's a way that you can get two queens, like you can get a young queen in a colony, and when that happens, there is no reconciling two queens, so one queen has to leave. But she'll take some of the brood with her. And I think that's probably what happened here.
Yeah.
They were traveling, and somehow they ended up in this car. He was only in the store for 15 minutes, he claims.
At first, I thought you were going to say it was going to be a grudge match between queen bees.
I think it could come to that if one doesn't leave.
Yeah.
But they won't do the fighting, It's just like the drones, I guess, fight on their behalf. That's probably a really cool thing that I want to Google later. Bee battles. Bee monarch battles. These stories happen every week, and I'm just astonished by them. I can't imagine, Krista, ever wanting to put a child into the system. What are you going to do?
I don't know.
You're not going to have kids. That's what you're going to do because you're loving your lifestyle right now. We've covered this. But if you did make this mistake, and God forbid, your child has a developmental issue, you're going to be facing this.
A school called police after a kindergartner with Down syndrome pointed a finger gun at her teacher. The girl's mom says they went too far. Isn't that that's kind of a thing, right? Doing the finger guns, hey, do you think she was maybe doing that?
Look at this terrorist. They said she did it angrily. But can we really expect her to understand the nuances of human communication?
No.
At the age of 6, she should have full grasp of her emotions and know what reactions are appropriate.
At the age of 6 with Down syndrome, she's operating on like 2 or 3.
6 is old enough to just be an adult. Let's just try her.
So the school fought back and said, hey, yeah, we called the cops, but we didn't initiate an investigation.
That is insane.
And the other headline that we are seeing more and more of, and when will the terror stop here? When are we going to do something? Thoughts and prayers aren't enough.
The 2 pilots were killed in a plane crash after their gender reveal stunt goes horrifically wrong in front of horrified family.
Wow.
The worst thing is these always happen after they've bred.
How do you explain to kids that this is what happened later? It's like, where's Dad? Well, about that.
Listen, little Johnny. Your father was phenomenally stupid. I mean, criminally so. And that's why he's not here. It's also why we're castrating you. So we have to stop this.
You must not be allowed to breed because of the sins of your father.
You know, now you were saying, you know, what do we do with the Uyghurs? You know, somebody wants them, right? Well, I've got an idea. I think Saudi Arabia might want them, but they probably wouldn't enjoy their time there.
Saudis can now get insurance coverage for runaway maids. Because that's a thing. Why would the maids run away? Oh, that's very dark. You don't want to know.
So, a lot of people will argue when you're talking about slavery. They're like, oh, you know, it wasn't just the Africans who were enslaved. We also enslaved the Irish. But the Irish slavery was a little different. It was like slavery light. That's what this basically is. You agree to it, but once you're there, you live with them. They decide where you go, what you eat. And if you were like, you know what, I feel like getting a different job. Well, guess what? You need paperwork that they control.
It's indentured servitude.
So what do? Sometimes you run away because it's awful. But the government's saying like, oh, you know what? We're going to cover you on that. You're going to get money back when that happens.
So that you can locate a new maid.
Man.
And the maid that ran away still has no paperwork and no way of getting new work.
Yeah, they're now undocumented and face deportation and re-enslavement, perhaps. I don't know. They do say that Saudi Arabia is doing a lot to try and change the perception of these kinds of things that they're doing, but I feel like this is a misstep if that's the goal.
Yeah, you're going to need some more changes at, let's say, the bedrock level than whatever that is.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Krista, these articles about insane house prices, they used to be a lot more fun when you were still looking for a house.
Right.
But this headline is insane enough to still be interesting.
Exhibit F in runaway inflation. Go ahead.
Bay Area house sells for $1 million over asking after 29 offers. This is not limited. Like normally you'd think, oh, that's just California, right? No, that's literally everywhere in the country right now.
Also in Texas, the same kind of thing happened in Texas, and it's just like runaway inflation. This is
that's
crazy.
happening here in Kentucky, which is the insane thing.
I don't think we're getting too many that are $1 million over. But yeah, it's terrible. And that's just, I mean, how does anybody, what percentage of the population can pay not just $1 million for a house, $1 million more than they thought they were going to?
The same percentage is very close to the percentage that can get a bank loan for these absurd numbers because, you know, housing is a market too big to fail.
That's another thing to think about too, is like you have to have the down payment for some of these houses as well. And it's like, how do people have the money to save for a down payment and then also buy a house when they're inflated this high?
Maybe they're flipping other houses.
Probably.
It's all just speculation at this point.
Probably.
Well, Krista, I think
rentals are crazy high right now.
Earlier you mentioned the classic meme of that 80s Spider-Man, or was it a 70s Spider-Man cartoon? Where
Spider-Man's pointing at each other.
Pointing at each other or pointing at himself. Someone else dressed as Spider-Man. I can't help but think about that when I read this headline because what they say here is probably not untrue, but are they the ones to be telling us?
China issues report on U.S. human rights violations. They're looking at the U.S. They're looking at our response to the thing, and they're saying, wow, you guys really messed up. They're looking at our prison system and some other things, and it's just, I can't help but feel like it's the pot calling the kettle black.
Well, especially when
Yeah.
they point out racial discrimination. And yeah, we probably have a little bit of an issue with that in this country. But we don't have internment camps.
Anymore.
Anymore.
That was wartime, Krista.
That was different. It's like 50 years ago. Not even.
Entirely different.
We covered this when it first came out. And once again, just like you were talking about earlier with the batteries, it's so, you get caught up and you get so excited. And then you find out that, oh, wait, it was not real. It was never
It was
real.
exciting. The latest EM Drive tests at Dresden University show that the Impossible engine does not develop any thrust at all.
Rip.
They said that this test apparatus, though, is brilliant. And even though that wasn't a thing, this test equipment is incredible. It can detect the pressure from a single photon.
So what happened was, it's not that NASA didn't find what they found. They did. It turns out the heat, just from the entropy of the whole contraption, caused the mounts that it was mounted to warm up to the degree that showed as a little bit of force. But they changed the way it was harnessed, and it went away. So, no infinite space travel for us yet.
Rip.
Dang it! That's not good though, because isn't a wacky Navy patent also based on that?
I don't know. Those people are going to have a bad week, aren't they?
Is there a connection between the Navy filing all these, advanced technology patents and the Stargate program? I don't know.
What about the UFO thing they're going to reveal soon? Could that be involved?
Yeah. Oh no.
And this is just another really fun headline. This is just ridiculous, but these are private institutions. They can do what they want. Don't send your kids here.
Trinity College in Perth bans mullet haircuts, labeling them unacceptable. Well, I mean, they are.
This is an Appalachian hate crime.
This guy's got a great
This is
mullet, though.
The Kentucky waterfall.
Western Australia, you can't look like a hillbilly.
When I think of Australians, I kind of do think of mullets.
Now,
Really? I don't.
Now, do you think that the outrage would be more, less, or the same if it was an afro that was banned?
They would never try that. That would be suicide for the entire institution.
What if I value my hillbilly heritage and feel...
And want to rock it.
You don't want to broach this topic very often, but what about people who wear other people's hair? You're not allowed to point that out.
Oh, yeah. It's like, I want to see your hillbilly heritage card in order for you to don this mullet. It's like, what business is it of yours?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's thought control. Gotta keep them in line. If you control them on their hair and keep them focused on that, they won't look at the bigger issues.
I can understand if they had a lice outbreak or something.
Well, then they would say everyone needs to cut their hair, not
but
just people with mullets.
It's a university,
Yeah.
not a grade school. I've actually sometimes I'll see, it's like, oh, there's this new Star Wars Lego set and it's $500. And I think to myself, I should just buy that and put it in the closet.
Because eventually it's going to be worth it.
Because in 20 years, that's going to be
It'll
huge.
be worth a lot.
But I'm worried that Disney's going to destroy Star Wars to the point that
Yeah.
they destroy that value.
Yeah.
So I don't do that. But it might be a good idea because this Legos, they get valuable.
Yeah. French police on trail of international gang of Lego looters. 3 suspects reportedly said they were a part of a team of specializing in stealing the collectible sets. Well, Legos are kind of valuable at this point.
You got any Star Trek Lego sets?
I don't think they made that.
They never made a Star Trek Lego set?
I don't think so.
Wow, that's
Really?
money on the table. What are they thinking? Wow.
Surely they made like the Enterprise, right?
I don't think so. Why don't you Google it?
Enterprise Lego.
You can do the like the Lego. There's like the fan made thing where you can, like, fans can put together designs. This is one of the most brilliant thing Lego's ever done. Fans can put together their own designs, share them, and you can order those from Lego, and they'll just send you all the parts to make the fan design. There's a lot of really cool stuff in there, but I don't think they've ever made.
Did you get a cut for that?
No.
There are off-brand ones. Mega Bloks Star Trek Enterprise.
Who do you think stopped that from happening? Was that
Paramount.
Roddenberry?
No, it's Paramount. They're ruthless and bloodthirsty.
But what could
There are a ton of Star Wars ones on Amazon. Like,
is it that?
It blows my mind that Star Trek The Next Generation had fewer seasons of runtime than Stargate.
Did the Star Wars people say no, only us or nothing?
Possibly.
That's crazy that they never made that. I mean, there's so many Lego sets that you can make out of Star Trek. It's nearly limitless.
yeah. There's Mega Bloks, though.
I don't want to hear
It's
about
only
Mega Bloks,
$300.
Krista. You take your Mega Bloks and you throw them out in the trash. That's where they belong. It's Lego or nothing. And this is a lesson. I don't know that we need this lesson. I think hopefully most people already understand this, that just because time has passed after that tweet that you put the N-word in doesn't mean it's not going to come back to haunt you eventually. Don't tweet racial slurs. That's the lesson.
Embattled San Francisco school board member sues district and colleagues after surfacing of offensive tweets. I said these horrible things. How dare you draw attention to that?
And you read this and it's like, oh, another overreaction. But these tweets, do you think they won't be deported, profiled, beaten, being a house is still being a how do you think you're going to get away with that? Even, what was this, 2018, something like that?
Yeah.
2016.
Yeah, it's you got to know better than that. Listen, if you've got some tweets right now that contain that kind of language, purge them immediately. Just stop watching the video and go take care of that, because oh boy, is she going to have trouble getting a job after this, don't you think?
Yeah.
And our final story is my favorite of the week. I imagine that the two of you did not watch the music video.
No.
I did.
Oh,
It was trending on YouTube.
how good was it, Krista?
It was, I don't really like this artist. He kind of steals everything.
Oh, who did he steal this from? I don't know that story.
There was I can't remember the name. I think like Twigs, I think was the name, and like she did a music video that is almost exactly the same, and like apparently he hired the choreographer who worked on it, and it's like, dude. And he's like, oh, I didn't know.
Well, that's interesting that you bring that up, because that goes along perfectly with my interpretation of this. But let's look at the headline first. Oh, Yahoo News.
Nike sues over Lil Nas X Satan shoes with human-blooded soles.
So this is a convoluted story. Let's start from the beginning.
Nike has a service where you can customize shoes.
That's not what this is.
Well, but they're real Nike shoes. They bought them and customized them.
But they did all that by themselves.
Yeah, yeah.
Like they just went and bought the shoes.
Oh,
Nike
yeah.
was not involved.
Yeah.
And that is the key. Nike did not know anything about this. It was him and this company, MSCHF. I don't know what that stands for.
They bought 666 pairs of shoes.
And pimped them and made them all black and red, like devil colors, and made this big campaign. And what's happened is a lot of people have seen this and are like, oh, that's the devil and I love God. I'm going to boycott Nike. And Nike's, what? No, we don't know what this is. No, stop. But it doesn't matter. But you have to watch the video. Make some time later to watch that video. Because and what Krista brought up, I think, perfectly describes the problem. The problem has nothing to do with Satan, has nothing to do with these shoes. The problem is, this is one of the gayest pieces of media that's ever been produced.
There goes the monetization.
And these religious people and these like sports stars and stuff like that, I think they're very uncomfortable with that. And when Krista was talking about the girl, when I was watching this video, I was like, you know what this is? This is the exact same template that they use for these young girls who do videos. Like he's dancing
and
around
it's stolen from a girl.
and it's like he's pole dancing and he's twerking on the devil, and it's just like super sexualized, but you wouldn't think twice about it if it was a girl and a boy or whatever.
Right.
So it's the overwhelming homosexuality, I think, that has people very
Upset,
uncomfortable with this. And
The other
that's
thing
why
that-
they're lashing out.
The other thing that cracks me up with the shoe part in particular is they're like, there's human blood in the shoes, and it's like, I mean, it's Nike. Like, isn't that sweatshop labor? Like, are you
So there might be actually more than one person's blood in that
blood
shoe.
on the shoes? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was these pairs of shoes sold for a little over $1,000 each. So
And
We're in
I
the wrong
think
business.
he knows exactly what he's doing, and he is brilliant for having done this. I mean, if he's stealing it, then maybe that's another thing. But after all of this controversy, they were like, you have to apologize for this. So he tweeted, and he was like, he started out with one of those cookie cutter apology videos, but as he's about to say sorry, it cuts to him twerking on Satan again. What a great troll.
This guy is all about like the hype though, because he's had other music videos. Like he's definitely like the biggest shill that I've seen, because there are other music videos he's doing that it's like, oh, this is supposed to be art, but then it's like, here's me holding Estee Lauder lotion, and here's a bunch of the models eating Doritos, and it's very like that scene from Wayne's World where they're like, we would never sell out, but it's all in a music video, and it's strange.
Well, I mean, he sold $250,000 worth of shoes here, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, it's
No,
working for him. He's making a ton of money, but
almost $750,000.
666
Jeez.
times what, like 1,200?
1,200 each.
Oh, okay, yeah. He didn't probably keep all that though. This was
Well.
a partner, but yeah, and plus he had to buy the Nikes. They were probably at least $100, maybe 200.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see if Nike can actually control this, because if you buy the product and then resell it and you don't mention Nike anywhere.
Well, I think they did get them to stop, but stop what? There was only a certain number of these shoes, and they're gone. So what are you stopping? I can just imagine these, like evangelist types seeing this. And I don't know if they were angry or happy. I don't know if they were angry because, there's probably like that whole latent homosexuality thing that they're dealing with, or they were happy because they were like, oh, this is all of April. This is all I have to talk about all of April. I'm going to get so much money.
people should be more angry about some poor person who's being exploited to make those shoes than this. But here we are.
Here we are.
Rip.
All right. Well, that's all we got.
Yeah, we will see you guys next week.
Woo!
Tell us what you want to name the snail.
Scooter.
Bye.